So, going off of James chapter 4, verse 12, it says there is only one lawgiver, and that lawgiver is God. Do you affirm that as a Christian?
Yeah, I'm grabbing my Bible really quick just so I can have it up.
Okay.
W.
Right on, man. Let me know when you're ready.
We have another guest. I'm just gonna keep him out. This conversation would be a good way to wrap up the night. So.
Okay, I got it.
All right. James chapter 4, verse 12.
Warning against worldliness.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Warnings against worldliness. Or wait, no, that's...
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's down at the bottom, but you don't have to worry about the titles that they give certain chapters because they weren't originally there.
No, yeah, I was just because I'm assuming there's... Yeah, so... I got it. Yeah, the one who speaks against his brothers or judges his brothers speaks evil of the law and the judge. Is that one?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The law, but if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is only one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor?
Yeah. So that says there is only one lawgiver. All right, and who is that one lawgiver in that passage?
God.
God. Very good, sir. All right. So in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2, God says, and he says this all over the place within his law, but he says, you shall not add to the word that I command you, nor you shall take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your God that I command you. Do you affirm that as a Christian?
Yes, I mean, it was like Revelation, like, do not add one jot or tittle to the word unless you gain.
Yeah, but correct, but that's referring to just that prophecy specifically. But right here in the law, it's referring to the law here.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
So I agree with you there in Revelation, but just focusing on the law right now, because I'm obviously you can see where I'm going with this. There's only one lawgiver. God says we cannot add to or take away from his law, so you affirm that as a Christian, right?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Okay. All right. So then, when it comes to incrementalism, would you sign or promote a heartbeat bill?
Well, I guess it depends. I'm assuming you're asking if the previous law or the law of the land at that time is significantly worse, right?
No, it wouldn't matter because there's only one lawgiver. There's only one law system that God gave us.
Well, okay, I guess I see what you're saying. I'm saying, like, of course, if abortion was completely banned, no, I would not sign a heartbeat bill. Like,
well, no. Obviously, we're talking about abortion being a thing.
Yeah.
So let's say that it's all abortion that so far, like we're in the state of California, there, abortion is running rampant. Somebody goes, you know what? How about a heartbeat bill to start out with these wicked people? Would you be for that, and would you sign it?
Again, it depends how bad the law is, and that's. I mean, I know you're going to say.
Okay, well then here, how about this? I'll make it easy. Here, I'll make it easy for you. Could you give me an example of an incremental bill? Since just so you know, Extra said he could not think of one. All right, as an incrementalist, he said that. I think I still have the recording too. But so as an incrementalist, could you tell me? Could you give me an idea of what an incremental heartbeat bill looks like that does not add to or take away from the Word of God?
Well, for example, I think the overturning of Roe v. Wade was significant and good. However, that did not mean that abortion is completely fixed. However,
that wasn't that. Real quick, sir, that wasn't a law. That was just an opinion by the Supreme Court.
Well,
Supreme Court
but it was
law in America.
But it created a precedent in which now states were able to decide by themselves. So that was
that's not true, sir. Here, that's not true. I'll explain to you why. So I'm in Missouri.
I mean, it was overturned. Was it not overturned?
Well, hold on. Well, here, let me explain to you why it didn't matter. Okay, and this is why a lot of people fell for the pro-life lie on that one. And you can look this up so you know I'm not lying to you. So Missouri. So when the Supreme Court said, "Hey, a certain substance that I can't say on TikTok They said, hey, we don't believe this should be legalized. Missouri and a couple of other states pretty much gave the finger and said, you don't make law, we don't have to follow you. And so they ended up making their own law on there. The Supreme Court said, had a ruling on a certain pew-pew law, and Missouri said, you don't make law, we don't have to follow you. And so they did their own law. But then for some reason, when it came to Roe v. Wade, the pro-life movement said, oh, no, we have to follow the Supreme Court. And if only the Supreme Court would overturn, then we could do X, Y, and Z. So they're lying. Because it doesn't make sense of why they could do it with all these other Supreme Court, reject the Supreme Court's ruling, but they couldn't reject that one. They're full of it. So yeah, so the states at any time could reject the Supreme Court. It's just a ruling. So what they can do is the states, when they're making their own decisions, they can appeal to the Supreme Court and say, hey, I like the decision that these judges made. That's why we're making our law in Missouri or Kansas, wherever, a thing. Or they can say, hey, we reject their ruling on that one. That's why we're keeping this law, whatever. So yeah, so Supreme Court doesn't really make law, just so you know. But besides the point, that doesn't do anything.
They don't make law, but they interpret law.
Yes, they do.
The Supreme Court ruling in '73, they interpreted rights of privacy, all of that, and they interpreted it as it can allow abortion.
Right, but the problem is
ruling has now been overturned.
So here's the thing: so as a Christian, does the Supreme Court get to decide what is good and right, or does God?
Well, no, God obviously.
Very good, sir.
No, but again.
So does the Supreme Court have the right? Hold on, sir. Does the Supreme Court have the right to make law, according to what we just read in the Scripture?
Well, again, they don't make law, but they interpret it.
Right. So do they have the right to interpret law the way that they seem fit?
As our elected leaders in the land we live in, they do.
Okay. Since all nations are supposed to submit to King Jesus in Matthew chapter 28, 18 through 20, and in Psalm chapter 2 where it says the nations are to kiss the Son lest he be angry with them and destroy them, are the nations supposed to do that, or ought they submit to what God says?
Well, I believe that we are called to obey the laws of our land unless they strictly go to Jesus. I mean,
very good, sir. Here, very good.
Jesus not
all right,
say
so very good. Here, I'll tell you. All right, very good. I agree. All right, so now, don't forget, Jesus also said in Matthew chapter 5 that he did not come to abolish the law or the prophets. All right, he did not come to abolish.
He came to fulfill the law.
Yeah, and fulfillment obviously cannot mean to end the law, or else that would contradict what he just said before. That would be weird for him to say, I did not come to end the law, or the prophets, I did not come to end them, but to end them through fulfillment. That wouldn't make any sense.
Well,
right,
yes,
and then it wouldn't make any sense for him to follow what he said with the words, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota or a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. And then it'd also be weird for him to say, therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be great. So since we have Jesus saying those things, and Jesus says in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2, that we cannot add to or take away from the law. So again, when you said we are supposed to submit to our governing leaders unless they contradict the law of God, well, any law that they make that it is not mirrored after God's law would be adding to or taking away from God's law. So again, sir, the question is, could you please give me an idea of what an incremental bill would look like that does not add to or remove from the law of God?
Well, I kind of don't necessarily agree with the premise of your question, because I think what we're talking about, biblical law and the law of God, isn't necessarily the same as the laws of man. So when you say he came to fulfill the law, not abolish it, I don't think that's the same as saying that the laws of the land we live in which we are in a society together, in which Christians have to operate, is the same thing as that.
Say that again. So you're saying that the nations today do not have to abide or submit to God's law?
No, I'm saying as Christians, comparing the fulfillment of the law of Jesus, which by fulfilling the law, he released us from the law for sin purposes. We are talking about sin, and I don't think that doesn't
change anything.
No, that
doesn't change anything, because again, let me explain why it doesn't.
That's not the same as talking about the human laws in which the society we live in.
Okay, but again, who gets to decide what the laws are that we live in? Because again, if you say that we are no longer, that the God's law is no longer in play today, one, that would be weird for Paul to then put it on Christians. That'd be weird for Paul to say in Romans 3:31 that we are to establish the law. So, and again, that would be weird for God to say, go and teach them everything that he has commanded. Like, how are we supposed to teach the nations that they commanded if they get to make their own commands?
Well, I mean, first of all, but does it not say that God raises up and tears down every leader?
Correct. That doesn't mean that because he puts a wicked leader in like Nebuchadnezzar to punish Israel who disobeyed by not following the law, that doesn't mean that just because God does that, that we should also break the law. That would be weird. Because again, the whole reason why he punished them by giving them a wicked ruler was because they did not obey the commandments of God. So then how would we fix the problem? By continuing to not obey God? That didn't work out for Israel.
Well, I mean, does Jesus not specifically say, give Caesar what Caesar is due? Pay unto Caesar
Correct.
what Caesar is due?
Yeah, so what is Caesar's?
Well, I think, obviously, if we're talking about, what I think most people agree to it is that what Caesar's tax rate is at that time, give it to him.
Yeah, so what is Caesar's is what the question was asked.
Well, yes, and I think the point is that at that time in your
you
society,
said, well, yes. What is? Wait, hold on. Respectfully, man, you just said, well, yes. What is that? How did that answer my question? I asked, what is Caesar's? And you said, well, yes.
At that time, what the law of the land is that Caesar asks, like percentage of taxes or all of that, is what Caesar is due.
Right. Okay. And
it's interpreted in a lot of ways to mean just, hey, you as a Christian are going to live in a society and follow the laws of the society unless they specifically obviously go against, unless they specifically say, bow to this or reject Christ, then...
So we can follow laws as long as they don't say bow to something else or reject Jesus?
Well, I mean, if laws...
Be careful, because just so you know, I'm going to bring up grape laws that are in the Middle East.
Well, okay, no, but I'm saying if laws specifically...
Hey, they're not rejecting Jesus, or they're not bowing to another idol if they're only just raping children.
Well, but wouldn't that...
You see how weird that would be?
Yes, I understand,
okay.
But I'm saying...
So it cannot be... So real quick, man. Hold on, think this through.
But however, those
Hold
laws
on, man. Wait.
Interpreted because of Sharia law and because of their beliefs.
Think this through. Wait a minute. It doesn't matter where it came from, because at the end of the day, the government gets to make their own laws. So if the government, so you're saying that the government didn't say, hey, this is in the name of Islam, and they just said this is in the name of secularism, like we do in America, then it would be okay? No, come on, man. And so again, what you said originally, here, you want to go back. I'm going to let you go back and say this, but I'm going to quote you again. You said, as long as they don't make a law that says for us to bow to another God or reject Jesus, therefore, and I stopped you. Because those are not the only two things. Because obviously you'd say, no, a Christian cannot just go and grape somebody just because the law says it allows them to. Why? Because that goes against what God commands. Right? So it's not just about bowing to or rejecting Jesus. There's more to it than that, and you know that.
Yes, the point you're going to try to make is that, or the point we're both trying to, I guess, make and agree on is that a law that is sinful. And you're going to say that any bill that isn't completely abolitionist is sinful. So therefore,
well, right, but why? But why do I say that?
Therefore, if I support a law that at least tries to make things better, and obviously, like, you're just getting to the heart of the argument, which is, but the difference is I don't believe that as Christians working within a society to fight little battles to at least make things better and always fight is sinful.
Here, let me show you why. Okay, let me show you why. Because when God says that if you add to or remove from his law, he says he will curse you. So when you are trying to say, well, we're doing a law that makes it better, and it's adding to God's law, it doesn't, because it curses the nation.
No, but you're not
God says he destroys. Then could you please tell me where you see it within? So then again, this is why I asked the question to which Extra did not answer, and yet you have yet to answer either. Could you then tell me what an incremental bill that does not add to or take away from God's law looks like? Where can we find it within God's law? Because every law that I'm going to tell you that we should put in our nation mirrors God's law, every single one. And if it's not in it, then I say we should remove it. That's how I do things. So again, for you, sir, go ahead and show me then an incremental bill that you can point to within God's law that it mirrors it. I'll wait.
Well, again, I think the premise of your question is flawed because you're assuming that as Christians operating within the society in which they live and having a say by the fact that we can vote in certain worldly laws is different than our call to the moral law in which Jesus fulfilled. And also,
wait, time out. Whoa. Did you just say Jesus? Okay, so again, Jesus fulfilling the law does not remove the law. Are you saying that Jesus fulfilling the law removes the validity of the law today?
Well, let me ask you this. Does Paul not talk about how we are no longer held by the bounds of kosher? Does Paul not specifically allow Christians to
Yeah.
free? So
Here's what Paul says. Here's what Paul says, okay? All right? Since you want to bring up Paul, and you're probably talking about Galatians, which, again, just like many other Christians, you guys are interpreting Galatians so wrong when you're bringing up we're not under law, we're under grace. Amen. That's not what we're saying here. This is why you guys need to study theonomy a little bit more.
I understand, but I'm saying your argument is
here's what Paul says. Ready? Here's what Paul says.
Hold up.
Hold on. You asked me a question. All right. Okay. Respectfully, you asked me a question. I'm going to read a scripture. Okay. So, do we then overthrow? This is Romans chapter 3, verse 31. Do we overthrow the law by this faith? By no means. On the contrary, we, the Greek word there could be can mean to stand upon, uphold, or establish the law. So again, if we're not under the law, then why is Paul telling us to establish the law? Now again, let me tell you something. When Paul says that we are not under the law, he's debating the Judaizers who were trying to say we are saved by the law. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying we're saved by the law. I'm saying that Jesus is the Savior. But then what I'm saying is the intention and use of the law is to know if we are loving God correctly and loving our neighbor correctly. Because Jesus says in John chapter 14, verse 15, he says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So I'm not saying we're saved by the law at all. I'm not saying that we are under the law as what the Judaizers say for salvation. No, I reject them, and I reject the idea that if you try to think I'm saying that. What I'm saying is we are literally called as Christians to establish God's law in the nations. That's why the whole prophecy that will be fulfilled someday in Isaiah chapter 42, if my memory serves right, he literally says, let me see if I got it right on there. Isaiah 42. Yep, there we go. Behold my servant who I uphold, my chosen one in whom my soul delights. Clearly talking about Jesus. I have put my spirit upon him, and he will bring forth justice to the nations. He will not cry aloud or lift up his voice or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow faint or be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his law. Now, sir, the interesting thing here that most people might think is, well, yeah, this happens at the second coming when Jesus returns. Well, that wouldn't make any sense, because here's the problem. Okay, and I'm going to ask this question for you and let you answer on this. Who is the law intended for? That's your pop quiz for tonight. Who is the law intended for?
Well, again, for believers.
No, sir. All right, here's what it says the law is for. In 1 Timothy chapter 1, 8 through 11, watch this. Now we know the law is good if one uses it lawfully. This is Paul, okay? The same one that you were just saying.
He's talking to Gentiles. He's talking to Judaizers.
Hold on. Wait. Yeah, right. Now watch this.
He's telling Timothy how to preach to Judaizers, yes.
Yes, now watch this, though, okay? So don't get too ahead, okay? Don't rejoice too much right now, okay? I'm just reading the one part of it, okay? Now, so we know the law is good if one uses it lawfully. So the way the Judaizers were using law was not lawfully. Okay, the way America is trying to use good laws like capital punishment, the death penalty, is not doing good because they aren't using it lawfully. Now, watch this. verse 9. Understand this, okay? Understanding this, that the law is not laid down for the just, but for the lawless and the disobedient, for the ungodly and sinners, for the unholy and the profane, for those who strike their fathers and mothers, for murderers, for the sexually immoral, men who practice rainbow stuff, enslavers, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine in accordance with the gospel, to the glory of the blessed God to which I have been entrusted. So who did Paul say the law is laid down for?
The unjust.
Yeah, so is that believers?
I mean, well, are you talking like in the sense of that we need Jesus' sanctification, or in the sense that we have?
Here I'll tell you. Well, here, pay attention. Pay attention to this. It says the law is not laid down for the just. So within the context of what is being said here, who are the just and who are the unjust?
Well, again,
Christians are the just because they are sanctified by Christ.
No, that's what I was saying.
You were justified today, my brother.
Because we have been justified doesn't involve us. But again, there's
so who is the law for?
The unjust.
All right. So we can say this: the law is laid down for where there is sinners. Correct? Where there are sinners, therefore there will be law.
That was the point I was getting at. Is because
I know. Now watch this. I know, but pay attention to this, okay? So the law is not for the just; it's for where there are sinners at. All right, you have to be clear on that, because remember what it just said in Isaiah 42. It said he will establish his law in all the coastlands, and that they wait for his law. All right, so then again, when will that event have to take place? Well, it has to take place where there are sinners. So it cannot be when the second coming happens, because when the second coming happens, what happens to all the sinners? They get thrown in the lake of fire. And there won't be no death anymore, it says at the end.
Well, I mean,
right?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying generally. I think your view kind of depends on your eschatology, which is a different.
Very good, sir.
So.
Very good. Yeah, that's what I'm a post-millennialist. So that's what I'm getting at. So again, that means that we are in the millennium, and that Jesus comes at the end of the millennium, because it's the most quoted Bible verse by Jesus himself and the apostles is Psalm 110 verse 1, where it says, "Sit at my right hand until I put every enemy under your feet." Paul says the last enemy to be destroyed is death. So again, yeah. So God's law is.
I get what you're saying, but I guess my point is that if your argument relies on eschatology, then we would have to continue the thousands and thousands of years of debate of eschatology in order to start the
well, dude, not necessarily, because here's the thing is, so again, I'm showing you a consistent plan of God right now. So one, I just gave you a logical argument on where God's law has to be it's for where sinners are. All right. So again, we can't be talking about a place where there are no sinners, right? Because it says that the law is for sinners. So it has to be a place where there is sinners. So today, in this earth, in this lifetime, all right, there are sinners, correct?
Well, first of all,
wait, can you just answer that question? Hold on.
Our sin is just washed.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the problem, sir. Are we going to be considered sinners in heaven?
Well, is this talking about once we're glorified?
Oh, well, exactly. All right, so very good. That's my whole point. So again, this law, all right, the only law system that we have been given by God, Mosaic law, all right, that law is going to be meant for a place where there is sinners. Okay, so that has to be on this lifetime, right, before Jesus returns. I think that's easy to. Correct. Okay, so obviously, that means that it has to happen in this lifetime. Okay, so the law is for this lifetime, right? All right, so let's just keep that in mind. So the law, in general, is for this lifetime. Do you agree or not?
I mean, I think it's always been and always will be.
Okay, very good, sir. All right, so the law is meant for this time. Okay, so very good. All right, so again, Paul tells us that we are to establish the law. We are to teach the nations the law. Paul says we wouldn't even know what sin is if it wasn't for the law. So again, the law is good, right, and perfect. And we are not to add to or take away from the law. Paul echoes this by saying in Corinthians, he goes, "Know this, that we're not to go beyond what is written." When he's talking about, again, he uses that same language that James uses. When I started that James passage out, where he talks about judging others according to a standard. Well, obviously it's the law. And then he goes, now understanding this, that we are not to go beyond what is written. Right? James says there's only one lawgiver. Right? Now, since we know there's only one lawgiver, we're not to go beyond what is written. Even Paul echoes that in the New Testament. All right, Jesus says he did not come to abolish the law, but fulfillment. And in other words, fulfillment could easily say, put within the context. The new covenant promises that the law would come with it, in case you didn't know that. Every time that the new covenant is promised, do you know that it says that the law will come with it? Did you know that?
Well, I agree with what you're saying about the law. I guess my question is, you haven't, I disagree with your idea that incrementalism is adding to the law.
Yeah, okay, I'll show you. Okay, so since we agree that the law is for the new covenant, the law is meant for a place where the sinners, so that only be in this location, then again, sir, when the passage says that they are not to add to or take away from the law, keep that in mind. Now, Deuteronomy 17, all right, points out when it talks about for rulers, what rulers are supposed to do. Oh, I'm in the wrong passage. I was pulling up the wrong one. Big error on my part. All right, Deuteronomy 17. Here we go. Deuteronomy 17 says, when it talks about what rulers are supposed to do, it says that that he shall, verse 19, it shall be with him, talking about the law, he will sit on the throne of kingdom, he shall write for himself a book of the copy of the law, approved by the Levitical priests, and it shall be with him, he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear Yahweh his God, by keeping all the words of this law, and the statutes and doing them. His heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, that he may not turn from the commandment, either to the right or to the left. So again, it says that even the rulers of the land, okay, so remember you brought up the give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's, and I asked you what is Caesar's, and you didn't really answer anything.
No, I said he's using an analogy of taxes to talk about the law of the land.
Right, so again, you're right, and here's the thing is though, okay, he wasn't really breaking any law by taxing the people. So again, here's the thing. Okay, going off of Deuteronomy 17, are leaders allowed to shift from the law and make their own law? I think you could say with me, no. Right, because that's what God says. They cannot turn from the right or to the left. They cannot add to the law.
I feel like every point you're making is that unless humans do something perfect, then we just shouldn't even try at all.
Ooh, no, sir. The law never calls for perfection. The
law does call. I mean,
it does not call for a perfect.
Jesus on the Mount says, "Be
yes,
perfect."
Sir. You should let me finish. You should let me finish my sentence. All right. The law doesn't call for a perfect person to establish it. It calls for us to only establish God's law. God's law in of itself is perfect. So therefore, again, go ahead and show me. Tell me, can you give me an example of what an incremental bill would look like that mirrors God's law and does not add to or take away from it? You say they don't. I'm saying prove it.
Well, first of all, God does command perfection. His
Sir, please, that's not what I just said, sir. You missed.
You said he doesn't.
No, he doesn't call for a perfect. Hold on, he does not call for a perfect person to be in the position to establish his law. Sir, because it says that
the standard
when it's
of
calling
his law
for the king,
is perfection. The standard of his law is perfection. That's why only a perfect person can fulfill it.
Yes, very good, sir.
So God's standard will always be perfection.
Yes, sir. That's not what is being argued here. Please pay attention. All right, I'm not arguing that God's law in the regards of salvation does not call for perfection. What I said is it does not call for a perfect leader to establish the law. Or else you have a contradiction, because it literally says this in Deuteronomy 17, that he is to learn to fear the Lord. Well, again, if he's perfect, he wouldn't have to learn how to do that. So therefore, it's already presupposing that an earthly ruler that is going to be establishing God's law is not going to be perfect.
Well,
right?
Yes,
so again, I'm not talking about in the regards to salvation. So let's move on from that. So
yes,
again, sir, you have still yet to.
It's also presupposing that it's a learning thing, which means progression, which means
no, sir, sir. Here, pay attention again. I'll read it again. Okay. All All right, because you just this is why you guys focus on one point. You guys literally go, see, it shows that the guy's going to learn, therefore we can make our own laws. No, because here, watch what it says right after that. Right when it says that he may learn to fear the Lord. How is he learning to fear the Lord? It says by keeping all the words of this law and statutes and doing them, that his heart may not be lifted above his brothers, that he may not turn aside from the commandment either to the right or to the left, which is another word to say he cannot add to or take away from the law. So again, sir, I'm going to ask you for probably the 10th time now, can you please demonstrate to us what an incremental bill would look like that mirrors God's law?
Well, again, I disagree with the premise of your question.
What part, sir?
Well, may I ask you a question?
No, you may answer that. I said what part?
I'm answering with a question.
Well, that's not an answer, sir. You have to answer. Go ahead and answer, and then you can ask a question.
You can prove points, but okay. Well, I think you'll get my question. Can I just ask quickly? You can say yes or no.
That's fine, sir. Go ahead.
Have you ever voted?
Yes, according to Deuteronomy 17, Exodus 18, and Deuteronomy chapter 1.
And is the candidate you voted for were his stances perfect?
No, because it does. So again, sir,
please pay attention. Why did you vote for him? Why did you vote for him?
Yeah. Because again, if you pay attention to what I just quoted, because in Exodus chapter 18, Deuteronomy chapter 1, and Deuteronomy 17 does not call for a perfect leader. What they call for, again, because it presupposes that they're not perfect, by saying they grow in the fear of the Lord. We already been through this, sir. Please. All right. So again, here's what it does say, though. I'm glad you asked. So there's really only 13 things, if I'm remembering right, that the requirements in those three chapters that I pointed out to you that says a leader must be. Now you tell me, where does it call for perfection when I read these out? It says they must be trustworthy. They must hate bribes. They must be wise in understanding and experience. They cannot show partiality. They cannot be a coward. They cannot be a foreigner. They must be a brother. They can't have multiple wives. They can't have a large amount of wealth. They must learn to fear God. They can't turn aside from the law either to the right or to the left, and they cannot have a standing army that is used for invading. Does any of those things call for perfection, sir?
No. So why would?
Say that one more time for me, sir.
No.
Okay, so when I voted for the candidate that I voted for, which is Dusty Devers, a Christian candidate, that's who I voted for president. I didn't vote for Trump because he does not meet the requirements that I read out there. But Dusty Devers did, all right, senator out of Oklahoma, Christian senator, who actually tries to establish God's law. That's who I voted for. So again, I went right along with what God said. And this is what I told you, sir. I said everything that I'm going to do in establishing God's law is mirrored off of God's law given to us in its principles within the new covenant. So again, sir, all I'm asking you, I'm not making a verbatim fallacy by saying, show me here where it says, and you could be incremental about this. But show me in the concept or the principles of God's law where we see an incremental bill. And just so you know, Extra himself said he cannot think of one. So Extra, who has been debating on the side of incrementalism for a long time, and I respect him, all right, he has yet to give me an idea of that. And he's now even trying to move away from that to make a different argument on it. But I keep making the same argument every time. We don't have the right to add to or take away from God's law. All right, so again,
the point of your...
Go ahead and tell me. So you asked me a question. Hold on. You asked me a question. All right, so I asked you a question, and instead you asked me a question asking who I voted for. I told you who I voted for. Okay, I answered it to your satisfaction because you agreed that it does not say perfection. So therefore, now my question still stands to you, sir. Can you please demonstrate to me what an incremental bill would look like that mirrors God's law and doesn't add to it or take away from it? So go ahead and answer that question. Please do not try to ask me a question because I allowed you to do that already, and it didn't work out. So I respectfully,
I'm not going to ask you a question. I just think you have the premise of your question is flawed.
Look, dude,
you said that multiple times, but
he's asked this question 15 times. If you were asking
because you guys have never let me actually answer.
Hold on. I just started talking.
Okay.
He's answered all of your questions in detail. If you asked him a question 15 times, I would make him answer the question. At this point, it's either yes or no. Do you have a concept, an example, or a principle that you can extrapolate from the Bible and the Word of God that would a incremental bill that would meet God's standard? Yes or no?
Again, I don't agree with the premise of the question.
That there's no a proposition is a true or false statement. A question is not a true or false statement. So questions are not propositions. So again, yes or no?
Again, I don't agree with the premise of your question.
There's no again. I'll break it down. A proposition.
Yes or no with a flawed
Hold
premise.
on. Now you're interjecting and being rude. A proposition is a true or false statement. A question is not a true or false statement. So it's not a proposition. Again, yes or no. Answer the question.
Do you believe that Jesus was man or God?
Yes or no?
Wait,
bro.
Dude, all right, sir, I have answered respectfully, man. And like, very respectfully, okay?
And you've never let me explain my reasoning.
Hold on, man. And here's the thing is, you can ask extra, all right? He says, I am very good faith when I debate incrementalists, okay? So again, when I asked you this question, extra... who is probably one of the top debaters, in my opinion, for the incrementalists. Him and then my other buddy, Jonathan Edwards, are probably the top debaters for incrementalism. They would still say that it is a fair question to ask. All right? And at the end of the day, I asked this question to you before. You said, well, how about I ask you a question instead? And again, I said that's not really fair to do, but I allowed it, and I answered your question. I have answered every question that you have. The only question you have yet to answer is...
because the question I asked was to show that the premise of your question is flawed.
I know, but you messed up, sir, because you said, did you vote for a perfect person? I said no, and the law doesn't require me to. And then I proved it to you, and you agreed to it.
The flaw in your question was legislation.
Time out, sir.
Hold up,
sir. Respectfully, sir. Please listen. Please listen, because you keep doing this, sir. And again, I can't tell if it's because you're young. Well, again, sir. So you said I asked you a question to show that your question was flawed, but I showed you that by me answering your question correctly, that my question wasn't flawed because I didn't add to or take away from God's law. So therefore, I said my question still stands, because since I still, by voting for the leader I did, I still abided by God's law and didn't add to or take away from it. So then that means that when you ask that question, I answered it fine, and I did not contradict my question to you.
No,
so
it
then
didn't.
Therefore,
but
sir, my question. It didn't. Okay, well then, sir, my question still
you were
stands.
Right. You were right, but what you're missing is that you're implying that legislation is somehow completely disconnected from the laws, from the people we put in charge as legislators, as politicians. The people we elect aren't entirely disconnected from the laws of the land.
They're not allowed to make laws.
Oh, the people we elect to Congress aren't allowed to make laws?
Yeah, they are not allowed. They are not allowed to make their own laws, sir.
Dude, CB,
there's only one lawgiver.
You affirmed with Kanoa in the beginning. He builded up to this point, James 4:12. You agreed, and he made it very clear that there's only one moral lawgiver, and you affirmed that to be the case. Well, you affirm this already.
No. I agree, but again, I just disagree with the premise that
if you agree,
as Christians, we are not allowed to operate in our society. We are not allowed to operate in our society unless
Well, I'm confused, CB. This is why.
That's not true.
This is why we're confused.
Why you can.
You agree with Kanoa that there's only one moral lawgiver, but you're confused about the fact that we elect people into office that create moral law. This is so basic. I don't know.
I don't think they create more. Again, you guys, I disagree with the premise that God's law is 100. Like, I disagree with the premise that the laws we have in our land are completely different, or like need to be the exact same as God's law. Now, ideally, they should be. Ideally, that's what we should be for. So I'm not saying
why. So are we allowed to then break one of God's commandments to try and obey another?
Well, again, you're pushing me into a spot where it's
it's a yes.
Yeah, you put yourself there, man.
No, because if the
Go ahead and answer the question. That's once again, you are not. Notice you are not answering question, and I want you to know something, sir. Every question, and I'm going to make sure that I have the recording of this live, because every question you ask me, I have answered and answered in detail. All right, and even was patient with you and explaining it a couple times sometimes. All right, but notice now there's two questions you are now not answering. One, showing me an example of the incremental bill.
I will answer.
Two, you have not answered. Okay, then again, sir, are we allowed to? So I think this is a simple yes or no. Are we allowed to break a commandment of God in order to obey another one? Go ahead.
Again, here's the thing. If I could speak for 10 seconds, I will say that you said.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you a minute.
Okay, exactly.
I will give you a minute. I'll give you 1 minute. Here's, sir. Ready? I'm going to give you 1 minute. All right, to answer this. Okay, I'm going to ask the two questions again. All right, and then I'm going to give you a minute. All right, and I'll ask them quick because all right. One, show us where in God's law that it that you see an incremental bill mirroring God's law. If you reject that, cool. But then tell me again, are we allowed to break a commandment of God in order to obey another? All right, go ahead.
Well, again, the premise of yes or no, I don't agree works here because those aren't the options. If we had to sit there, if our vote was yes, full abolition, or no, full abortion, then yes, of course we would vote that. But the situation we are in isn't, hey, vote for abolition or against it. It's, hey, with this new bill, we have the potential to save a certain amount of lives. And again, it's not complete, it's not perfect, but we should still fight for it. I think abolition is the war. I want abolition, but a war is made up of little battles. And we have, on a daily basis, we have to fight those little battles. And also, if we're talking about the Bible, I would say the entire Bible is a, when you look at it, it's a picture of sanctification. Okay. And the idea of sanctification
so hold on,
is
your
that
minute's
every day...
up. We're going to restart the timer. Kanoa asked the question again because he did not answer the question.
All right, so again, sir, the two questions are, one, are we allowed to break a commandment of God in order to obey another one? And we have, can you give us an example of an incremental bill that mirrors God's law and does not add to or take away from it?
Do I have a minute?
Yep.
Okay. Well, again, by asking a yes or no question and then saying break a law of God that because it disobeys another one is a flawed question because God's law would never go against another. So by forcing me into a yes or no in that situation and assuming that that's the same as incrementalism it's a flawed premise.
Hold on, I gotta stop because he didn't understand the question. So I'm gonna repeat it again because when he just said it back, he didn't say it back correctly. Sir, I said, are we allowed to break a commandment of God in order to try and obey another one? An example of this is if I make an oath to God, all right? So what God's law says, if I make an oath, I'm supposed to keep it, okay? And then my oath is whatever comes through the door, I'm going to unalive, and my daughter comes through the door, all right? Should I unalive her to keep my oath, or would that be murder?
Well, by your oath, do you mean your oath to the law, or did you just make that oath for some reason?
It would be to God. So whenever you make an oath to God.
Okay, well...
So the law of God says that I am required to keep my oaths. So
yes, but also by doing that...
But also... Exactly. And this is just so you know, I'm giving you a scenario. This actually happened in the Bible. All right?
By saying that
happened in the Bible.
By saying that your oath should determine law for everybody is adding to the law, is it not?
Okay, we're getting lost in the weeds. He gave you an example. Now can we just get answers to the questions?
Again, forcing me into a yes or no for a question that says, because God's law would never ask me to, if I follow God's law, his law would never force me into a situation where I have to obey or break one of his laws to obey another.
Again, the question is,
how would
can
that not
we
be
break...
contradicting? The question, that God's laws are contradictory?
The question again is, can we break one law to
of God.
do it, yeah, in order to accomplish another. Okay,
Yes,
that's
so you're
literally a yes
you're
or
asking
no.
if God's laws are contradictory.
No.
No, you're confused. So it says, all right. So again, so there's a law that says we are. So again, it's called, and me and Akshay talked about this, to where it says that the people are supposed to do something when somebody is sacrificing a child. Okay. All right. Now, me doing something, if it means that I get to save, like, since we're called to save lives, okay, I'm gonna make this really easy for you. Okay, so let's say that because we are called to rescue and to stop child sacrifice from happening, okay, if somebody offered me and said, hey, if to you and said, hey, if you grape these two children, you can end abortion. All right, would it be okay for you to do?
No, I don't believe you're forcing. Again, I don't believe in utilitarianism.
Okay, so you're saying that we cannot break the commandment of grape in order to try and rescue children, to obey that one commandment of rescuing children, right?
Yes, I would take a deontological stance.
Okay, so then again, sir, so when it came to God's law of adding to or taking away from it, you were saying it's okay to break that one because times are tough and it's too hard, even though God literally says in his law that don't say that the law is not near to you, that you can't do it, or don't say it's up in heaven that who shall ascend to get it, or it's across the sea that who shall go and bring it. He says, but the law is near to you that you can do it. All right, so again, you can always obey the commandment of not adding to and taking away from the law, okay, and by giving approval of those who do it. All right, so we don't give approval to those who add to or take away from the law. We don't try to establish laws that add to or take away from God's law. And so, when you propose an incremental bill, which you haven't even told me that if there was one that you would agree with on there, at least Extra is more consistent with this. I don't know if he's still here on that, but at least he's more consistent with this when he told me that he does not know of an incremental bill as of today that does not break the commandment of God and adding to or taken away from. All right. So again, sir,
Well, that's just
I'm
your
still
whole
waiting for
position. Is
you.
that incrementalism is wrong. That's the whole debate.
I'm just waiting for you to show me what an incremental law looks like that does not add to or take away from God's law. I'm waiting, sir. Go ahead.
Well, if we are in a position as Christians in a state, for example, like I am in Arizona, if I, as a voter who has been given the right to vote, am at a position where my two options are to vote for a heartbeat bill or vote against the heartbeat bill and allow abortion laws that are way worse, that allow way more unaliving of children, then I am going to vote for the heartbeat bill. And that doesn't mean I believe in
I can't tell if this is intentional. That's not answering the question.
Okay, but here I'll address what he just said anyways. What he said
position,
is good enough for me to address. Okay, so here's the problem, sir, with what you just said. All right, so you just said, I don't agree with the heartbeat bill because I believe there's injustice in it, right? You agree with that? Heartbeat bills are unjust.
Well, we live in a
Wait,
world
are you about to say
that we have to work with. So yes,
okay,
I believe it's. I believe.
But you wouldn't say. Hold on, but you wouldn't say God's law is unjust, right?
No.
But you will say that the heartbeat bill is unjust, correct? Right?
Well, you see, again, you're putting us in a position that's unfair because I don't think it's a fair.
So that's your position. You just said
no.
heartbeat bill. This is you, man.
No,
this
is
you. I'm not doing anything. I'm literally just taking what you say. Right? I'm literally asking you, letting you take what I'm giving you the options, man. You're giving me these answers, and then I'm critiquing you on your answers. I'm not adding to you.
Every question you ask is pretty much, hey.
Pretty precise, isn't it?
In the society we live in, where we have been given the right to vote, unless something is perfect and perfectly God's law,
no.
How is that not what you're saying? How is that not what you're saying?
Because again, I never said that we need a perfect leader. All I'm saying is our laws need to mirror the concept and principles of God's law. So I'm not doing a verbatim fallacy. I'm not saying that you have to write down the exact same wording on it, but the concept and principle of the law has to be there, and you guys can't even give me that, which is telling.
No,
This is why incrementalism is trash, and is sinful and goes against what God commands. Here's what incrementalism does in Romans chapter 1. In Romans chapter 1, I'm reading scripture, sir. In Romans chapter 1, verse 32, though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve death, they not only do them, but they give approval to those who practice them. And that is what you are doing, sir. You are giving approval. You are giving approval to those who practice them, sir. That's why you need to repent of your incrementalism. Oh, did you debate Lit? That's who I thought it was, dude.
Was it Lit?
I was wondering if that was. I was wondering if that's who Cat was. I'm like, man, that sounds so familiar. Protectus came in and he said, Scooter Cook Lit. I was wondering if that was Lit, dude. I was like, man, that sounds a lot like Lit.
Man, I thought he'd be better at it.
Dude, so did I, dude. I was like, man, Lit's a tough dude to debate. But when I was listening to you, dude, I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but he's not doing good. That's so funny. Protect for coming in here and saying
I don't know, Kanoa, if we could like break it down further. I don't know. It seems like
I think here's the thing is, at the end of the day, I'm satisfied with the conversation because again, I'm not holding him to extra on there. Extra debates differently than him. So again, I'm not putting this on extra or their incrementalist team, but for this guy's incrementalism, I don't think it holds a lot of weight, respectfully.
The conversation was practically a monologue.
Here, let's try it like this, man. Cool. I don't want to monologue.
I mean, I wasn't given a minute to answer your question. Just
okay, can I ask you?
Well, Mikul, let me engage with you for like not even 2 minutes, okay? Let's just. I'm going to give you an example, and then I just want like direct answers. I'm not looking to like expand upon them.
Again, if you force me into a situation in which a yes or no isn't fair.
It's not a yes or no. Okay.
May I ask a question?
He says, "Don't trap me with my own. Don't trap me with my own beliefs."
We're gonna break it down.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, when I'm done, I'm the host. Okay, so I'm just gonna ask you questions. You can ask me questions after. I'll make it super quick. If I'm a legislator, okay, and I allow for raping of women entirely. Any woman who's raped, it's legal in my view, no criminal consequence. Is that sin or not sin?
That is sin.
90% of women, under my view, can be raped without consequence. 10% will be criminalized. Sin or not sin?
Sin, but if your only other option is
perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So sin. Better. If I sign 1%. Okay, so I'm going to allow for 1% and criminalize 99%. Does it meet God's standard or no?
I mean, nothing meets God's standard, so we should.
Okay, so it would be sin. That would be sin then, correct?
Nothing meets God's standards. Oh my!
No, I'm saying we are incapable as humans of meeting.
Cool. Okay, fine. Now 1%, I criminalize, or I don't criminalize 1%. 99%, I do. Okay, is that sin or not sin?
Wait, repeat it.
Yeah, so 1% of women, I allow for them to be raped. If a man rapes a woman, and the other 99, I criminalize the man for doing so. Is that sin or not sin?
It is sin.
Okay, 0.1.
There isn't one single thing.
You answered. You answered. Thank you.
Man's most righteous action on earth is corrupted by sin to some extent.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sir, please. That's not what's being talked about right now.
Okay. So cool. 0.00001 I allow. And then the other percentage, okay, I criminalize. Is that sin or not sin?
Yes, it involves sin. It is
okay. Next, we're going to do the same thing. Is abortion the sin of child sacrifice?
Yes, it's the same as Moloch.
Okay, same questions. If I allow the legal permissibility of child sacrifice, is that sin or not sin?
Sin.
If I allow 1% of child sacrifice and criminalize 99% of child sacrifice, is that sin?
Yes, like I said,
If I
every human
criminalize
law
the
is corrupted by sin to some extent.
Thank you. If I criminalize the 10% because it was a heartbeat bill, okay, and then I allow the 90% to murder the child with a heartbeat, is that sin or not sin?
Just like my answer, every human law is going to be corrupted by sin.
Perfect. So then, therefore, ought we sin?
Well, again, but based on my answer,
No. Last question. Just answer. You could ask me questions. Ought we sin?
No.
Okay, perfect. Then humans shouldn't create law. You just conceded.
All right.
Yes,
Now,
because-
real quick,
but-
I have a question for you, man. Here,
hold
this
on.
will explain a lot of things
Can
for
I
you
answer?
because I think you're
By-
getting.
by-
Hold on,
by
man.
saying-
real
by
quick,
saying-
real quick.
by
Hold
comparing
on.
that
Hey,
to
real
civil
quick,
law.
real quick. I'm so sorry for muting you. I'm so sorry for muting you, but please pay attention to this because you're getting confused on the law because you're mixing now the spiritual side of the law versus the criminal side of the law. That's to be punished by man. Okay, because you just said we can never follow God's law. All right. So again, unmute please, and then I'm going to ask you this question to show you that no, we do follow God's law. All right. Now, not in a spiritual sense that you're talking about, but I'm going to show you how you do follow it in some aspect. All right. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever raped a woman?
No.
Okay. So did you obey the commandment of Deuteronomy 22, where it says you shall not rape somebody? It doesn't say it verbatim, but the concept's there.
I mean, just so I don't mix up Deuteronomy, I'm going to pull it up to make sure I can answer.
Alarm for what
Deuteronomy
time?
20.
Sorry, that was Alexa.
Deuteronomy 22, where it says that it gives a case law system
22
that
what?
says 25 through 27.
But if in the open country a man meets a young woman who is betrothed, and the man seizes her and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. But you shall do nothing to the young woman. She has committed no offense punishable by death. For this case is like that of man attacking and murdering his neighbor, because he met her in the open country. And though the betrothed woman cried for help, there was no one to rescue her.
So it's a case by case law system. So it's given the case as the example. So again, sir, have you ever raped a woman?
No.
So did you obey that law?
Yes.
All right. So we do follow now, and here's the thing, man. I do agree with you. Okay, there is a spiritual side of the law that, if, like it says, if we break one commandment, we break them all. All right, but there's also a physical side of the law as well, that we did not physically do the act. We did not do an act that's punishable by man. So there's laws that are punished by. So again, there's sins that are punished by God, which is all sin, and then there are crimes that are punishable by man. So when we're dealing with the law system and establishing God's law system, we are only to establish the laws that God tells us to. So we don't want the lust police because God doesn't tell man to establish those laws. But he does tell man to establish certain laws and to upkeep and punish these laws, just like the one in grape right here. It says that he shall be put to death. Okay, clearly it's talking about by, where it talks about the case on how he's to be put to death. So we do follow the law. And now let me ask you this, man. Are you perfect? And I know you're a Christian, so you'll obviously answer no. Right? Are you perfect? No. So you being imperfect, were somehow able to follow a command of God, or one of the laws of God here. All right. So again, that's why I'm trying to show you respectfully, man. And just so you know, dude, I think you're a cool dude. How old are you, by the way?
25.
25. All right, cool. So you're a young dude, young Christian, on fire for God's word. It sounds like you want to do what is honorable. I respect that and appreciate that. But keep this in mind, okay? So you, not being perfect, were able to keep one of the laws of God already, and I could probably bring up others that you haven't done either. All right.
Well, yes,
so
but
that's why.
So
that's why I'm saying. So when you're talking, yeah. So the point is, when you were saying we need to be perfect in order to establish these laws, we need a perfect person to do it. That's actually not true, because God, when He gives crimes, that's why I'm saying you're confusing certain sins with crimes. All crimes are sin, but not all sins are crimes that are to be punished by man.
Well,
So that's what I'm saying. So
my
we
point
don't need.
by that.
we don't need a perfect person to do this. We can have imperfect people establish these laws because God's law literally calls for an imperfect person to lead
But
in a
you are
country.
proving my point. You're proving my point in a way by that.
No, because I'm not
Yeah.
saying that we should break one of God's commandments in order to obey another.
No,
And I'm not saying that we should.
Imperfect people will never be able to establish on earth a perfect law. That will never happen into the.
Are you? Hold on. Are you sure about that? Wait, hold on, real quick. Are you sure about that? Before I answer this and address this, are you really sure? You can't think of any law in America that mirrors God's law today. You can't think of one.
In which it completely worked and was perfect. I mean, I understand.
Well, hold on. Whoa. What do you mean by work? Because again, people still broke God's law here. The law that he gave, the Mosaic law, it was broken by God. But again, that's the whole point. Is it's not meant that people will follow it perfectly if you establish it. But God says that he will not curse the nation anymore, and he says that it will cause terror to the evildoers. So it will lessen evil. It never says that it will completely remove them from or stop them from completely doing it. But he says that if we establish this law correctly, that it will be less and less and less. So again, sir. Are you really sure that there's not one law in America that doesn't mirror God's law?
Well, no, murder, certain things like that. But might I also make the point
well, then why did you say that, sir? Then why did you say what you said?
I was saying that is perfect in the way it's like...
It mirrors God's law. God's law is perfect. And if the law mirrors that, then again, if God's law says you shall not murder, and we put a law in that says you shall not murder, did we mirror that law?
Well, according to Jesus, if I've hated my brother, then I've committed murder.
Again, you're mixing spiritual side of the law, sir. Again, all right, you look at a lust with a woman, you have committed adultery. So again, there's, and this is what I'm talking about, there's physical aspects of the law, all right, and I already went through this, and there's spiritual sides of it. Okay, are you about to tell us that that if I get angry with somebody and I murder them with my heart, it's the same if I went over and took a knife and then stabbed them? Obviously not. No, there's two different things there.
Yes, there are two different things. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so then, sir, you can't obey the law.
When we make the argument of incrementalism, your standpoint is that the spiritual side and the law side have to be perfectly synchronized. And then
that's not what I said at all, sir. That's not what I said here. I'll explain it again. I said all crimes are sin, but not all sins are crimes that are to be punished by man. And I made the distinction within God's law. God's law makes it very clear on which crimes man is to establish and punish, and which ones they are not.
Okay, well, can I bring up a point from the last argument? If either of you were in it,
say that again.
Can I bring up an argument that you wanted? I don't know if you were in the last argument or the one I saw with Extra.
Was Shane in them with Extra?
I'm not sure, but I posed this question.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
We were on the topic of, give to Caesar what Caesar is due, and they said that was talking about taxes and all of that, and that's unrelated. And I asked them would it be a sin for you this year to not pay your taxes? And they all said no. They said
no, it wouldn't be a sin to not pay taxes because within God's law it doesn't say.
Didn't you say all crimes are sins?
Yeah, it's not a crime. Yeah, in God's law, it's not a crime to not pay your taxes. It says that literally there's no punishment for not paying your taxes. That's how you know it's not a crime to be punished by man.
Yeah,
because God doesn't give a punishment.
Explain to me what give to Caesar give unto Caesar what Caesar.
Well, yeah, I already been to that before, sir. All right, so keep in mind, all right.
Then try to reconcile those two arguments.
Sir, respectfully, you asked me a question, and unlike you, I actually like to answer the questions that I'm asked.
That wasn't an answer.
All right.
CB, all right. I was there too. Adrian went over that with him 3 times. That Caesar, God is still the king, right?
Yeah,
so, and I asked him this, and again, I already answered this. I already answered this, and he forgot because I did one of his things where I asked him with a question because when he said, "Hey, it says give to Caesar," well, he technically didn't ask me a question. You just said you made a statement. It says give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Then what did I ask you? I said, what is Caesar's? And what did you say? That's another one that you didn't answer that I just remember. You didn't answer that one. So again, when it says give to Caesar, what is Caesar's? What is Caesar's?
I did answer that.
Yeah, what is Caesar's? Yeah, what is Caesar's?
Whatever the Caesar claims is the tax law of that land, as the leader that God rose up through that kingdom.
Yeah, that's fine. And there's no law being broken there,
is what
sir.
is Caesar's.
Yeah, there's no law being broken.
So again,
which one of God's commands are being broken?
If you went against the IRS and did not pay your taxes this year, would you be committing a sin?
I would not be committing a sin. No, not by God, because man cannot make up their own sin, sir. And again, in God's law, it does not say that all right, to an extent, I get what you're saying. All right, so again, am I committing a crime? No. Right? Would I be sinning by not paying taxes? Yes, because God says I should pay taxes. But he does not say the exact amount, or that or he does not give a punishment for it. So man does not have the right to punish me for taxes. But do I still have to pay taxes? Yes. So sorry, I mistakenly answered a different question that you did not ask. So that was my fault.
He doesn't give
so yes, it would be a sin.
Aren't the wages of sin is all wages? The wages of sin, all sins are death.
Well, right, but when it says that, what death is he talking about there?
Spiritual death.
Correct. So he's not talking about death that's to be punished by man. When it says in Deuteronomy, to where it says the one who, or Leviticus, when it says the one who unalives somebody shall surely be stoned, which kind of death is it referring to there?
But again, to switch your argument back onto you by not.
Can you answer the question, sir?
Okay,
please. Can you answer the question, sir?
Wouldn't you have to support stoning, bringing back stoning in our culture today?
I'm for stoning, sir. Have you not? I'm clicked all over TikTok for saying this. So, sir, please answer the question.
Okay, I was just making sure. I didn't know.
Yes,
that's a ridiculous question.
I'm for stoning. I'm all over TikTok for that. Yes.
Okay, so just to clarify,
please, man, hold on, wait.
I know, so I can make the argument. I want to know your position.
I just want you to answer one question, man.
I want to understand your position.
Man, I answered so many of your questions. I just want one.
Can I just understand your position? I'm going to ask.
Can you just give me one question, man?
I'm simply asking, so that I can understand your question better. I want to know your position. Are you?
Okay, go ahead,
you would say, like, you actually agree with like the Old Testament laws exactly in terms of how punishment, like everything like that?
No, it's interpreted in their principles of the law in light of the new covenant.
Yes, but interpreted through the principles doesn't mean you have to unalive them in the same exact way.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be stoning, but again, but I believe stoning is fine because it's cheap, and stones are cheap and easy to find. And that's a clip that I always get clipped on, and I could get clipped again. I don't care. But yeah, so stones are cheap and easy to find. That's why I recommend stoning. But I also, as I said many times, have probably clipped as well. Firing squad will do.
Okay, so yes, so you don't. So that's the principle of the law that is different, I guess, than exactly what it says.
Yeah, that's why I asked you, give me a principle. So when I asked you, show me an incremental bill that, and I that's why I said multiple times, I'm not doing a verbatim fallacy. Remember, I'd say that. I'm asking for the concept or principles to be found in God's law that you're mirroring. All right, Extra himself could not find one. Right. So again, now please answer this question. I've answered now 5 of your questions, and you still haven't answered my one. All right. When the law says that whoever unalives somebody shall be stoned with stones, is that talking about the spiritual death or a physical death by man?
I mean, both.
No, when it says that he shall be stoned with stones.
Yes, it's describing the practical, like how it operates.
Thank you. Yeah, physical. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for answering that question. Yeah. So again, there are spiritual deaths that God carries out, and then there's physical deaths that man carries out, and God gets to tell us which one's which, and we don't get to add to or take away from, because we are not God, and there's only one lawgiver, and that is God. And when we say we get to make our own laws, what we are saying is that we are God. And therefore we break the first commandment by doing so. All right, man. I think it was a good. Scooter already put time limit for 8. Yeah, go ahead, man. You can ask me a bunch of questions now.
So
Yeah, real quick, if you don't mind, McCool, I just have a quick question for Kanoa. So the purpose of stoning, right, Kanoa, is for the accuser to throw the first stone.
Correct.
So how do you do that in a firing squad?
You hit him in the leg.
Gotcha. All right,
or
that's
you're the
all
one
I
who
got.
gets to pull the trigger,
It just came up. I'm like, I really want this answered.
or they give you the gun and you get to do
Well,
it.
ultimately, it's not really. Here's the thing, Scooter. Because somebody could throw the first stone and unalive somebody as well. If they get a clean shot, with it, they could potentially unalive somebody as well. That's not the point of it. The point
Yeah.
is that it's supposed to be a brutal death that's done by the public. So even if somebody shoots them, right, and then everybody immediately fires after that first shot is fired. So the moment you hear that gunshot go, it's like a race, or like what they would do, those quick draws, where somebody would fire a shot in the air, and then everybody else would fire. Then the people would fire at each other. It'd be the same thing. The moment the accuser fires that first shot, everybody's already pointing guns. They would all fire as well. So it'd be real quick either way.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. All right. Anyways, go ahead, McCool.
So even though obviously our so like you would agree that the state doesn't bears the sword not for nothing, like capital punishment for all homicide. Agree?
Yes, we should do the death penalty for anywhere that God calls for the death penalty.
Yes. So then, even though you said our laws on murder are just, however, our laws on murder in most states the death penalty is banned. Does that mean putting them in prison?
Yeah, so that law
is
yes, sir. Life sentence prisons are awful because they tax the people to keep somebody alive, and
Yes,
so that's unjust tax, and that
agree.
burdens
Does that mean it would
the
be
society.
better? Does that mean it would be better if we didn't put them in prison at all?
No, we should unalive them.
Exactly.
And if you say, we have to have the choice of either letting them go, which I don't see how we would do anyways, letting them go, or prison, it would be better to not break one commandment of God in order to try and obey another.
So you would let them go if it wasn't
no, I would literally call for them to be executed, and I would not make another law.
Yes, and
to try and here's the thing: if the people refuse, so me, if let's say I'm a leader of the land and I say, hey, this guy should be executed, and the people say, no, we don't want to do execution, I'm not going to go, fine, how about jail? No, I'm going to say, you all need to repent and you need to turn to Christ, because God says that he is to be unalived, so he's to be unalived, and I'm not doing anything other than what God says. And if they said, well, then we'll remove you out of office, fine, but I'm not going to break one of God's commands to do so.
So
if the people want to sin, I'm not going to go with them to sin. As for me and my household, we will obey the Lord.
So is it unjust right now? Obviously, like God's law, but on a practical level,
yes, America is doing unjust.
Would you rather them all be free?
No, anybody who has committed a crime worthy of unalivement should be unalived. Anybody who committed a crime that is not worthy of unalivement but should do restitution, because those are the options within God's law. They should either pay restitution and then they get to go back into society, or if they unintentionally unalive somebody, they should go to a sanctuary city, or they should be unalived. So those are your options.
If you are a lawmaker say you're a lawmaker in a state, but you're not the highest lawmaker, the governor, in which you have direct say over capital punishment or not. All right, so
which one am I?
You are a lawmaker, but you do not have the authority to decide whether capital punishment is legal or not.
Yeah. So I can only. So we only, as abolitionists,
would you rather free the people in prison because they did not get perfect justice with the death penalty?
No, I would have the option as lawmakers to not make a law there. So again, if those are my only options, I'm not making a law.
Say you were voted into office today, where that's the law of the land as it is.
Yeah, I would immediately put bills in that say, just like what Dusty Deaver does, these laws need to be removed because they disobey what God says. These laws need to be added because they go along with what God says. That's what I would do.
Okay, well, let's say this.
And I would write those bills, and this is what we're actually doing in Missouri, man, just so you know. We actually talk to senators, and we say, hey, these are the laws that you need bills you need to write in and establish. And some of it, we have some senators that were doing that, and some senators refused, and we got them voted out. So
Okay.
So we said, okay, if you're not going to follow God's law, then get out and we'll find somebody who will.
So say you were in the Senate. Say you were in the state Senate.
So that's what we're doing.
Say you were in the state Senate, and a bill that was in front of you was either no prison or life in prison. There was no death penalty, and then it came to you, and you
I would not vote on that bill. Yeah,
So
I'd
if
veto that.
If you were the deciding
I'd say
vote,
get this garbage out of my sight.
so if you were the
yoke
deciding
of the
vote,
devil has been destroyed.
So if you were the deciding vote, you would say that you would rather them all go free than spend life in prison, and you would let the law take place
me saying that they should be unalived and not voting on an evil bill is not me automatically saying they should go free. I don't know why you guys try to draw the conclusion.
If you were the last deciding vote in a state Senate,
I'm vetoing. That's an option in America to not vote. Pro-lifers do it all the time for equal rights and protection bills. They literally go no vote. All right. I'm not voting on that. Or actually, no. Here's the thing: is I would actually you could either vote no, not vote at all, which you could do, or you can vote no. And I'd probably actually vote no on it. And I state why. I'd say because this bill goes against what God says. So actually, I would vote no on a bill that says life in prison.
So if the vote no,
because that's dumb and burdens society.
If the vote no means that all unalivers just get like a ticket and a fine and they're free to go, you would let that happen to all unalivers in the state rather than vote no because it's not the death penalty?
Well, again, would let that happen? No, because I'd be still working to try and put other laws in, and then I'd be going street preaching and commanding the people to actually do what God says and to hold these men accountable. So it wouldn't be that I'd just be letting them go. It's I'd be doing things according to what God says. No. God says that I'm not to do evil that good may come. Putting a bill in that burdens thousands of people through taxes or goes against what God commands it, and
you would let those unalivers free to.
Yeah, I would not do evil that good may come. However you want to call that, I'm going to obey God's law there. And unlike you, I can demonstrate the concept within the law. Deuteronomy 4:2, Deuteronomy 12.
Your point is that you would be putting forth these bills, you would be doing all that, which I agree. I'm not arguing against that because at the end of the day, I think perfect. If we had it our way, it would be abolition. But what the difference is that abolition is
the difference is you are willing to do evil that good may come. That's the difference, man. You are willing to break God's command to try and establish another. I am not. Yeah, I'm not going to do evil that the good may come. I am not going to go with the many to do evil. I am not going to, as it says in Deuteronomy 12:32, everything that I command you, you shall be careful to do. You shall not add to it or take from it. And I believe that's what we should do, man.
All right, now here's the thing. You just said that you would rather the evildoer. You said that you would rather the evildoer have no punishment.
Respectfully,
wait, actually,
you're out of time.
Yeah, you're out of time.
And that's not what I said.
And that's not what he said.
So here's the thing, McCool. This is what I want you to hear, okay? And no, I didn't say that I would be okay with letting him go. What I'm saying is I am not going to break God's command to go ahead to try and bring justice, okay? Or a false sense of justice, all right? So no, that's like me saying if you had the option of if you see a guy going to attack to murder 5 people, but the only way to stop him is to grape somebody, are you going to do it? And you say, no, I'm not going to do it. Oh, so you're okay with that guy murdering 5 people? Dude, come on. That wouldn't be a fair thing.
I would disagree because
you would grape.
No. Sorry, on the logic of your point.
Here, McCool, this is why you're bad faith.
The logic of your point.
McCool, would you
going forth and committing a sin on purpose versus using
relax.
It would be a sin, though. That's my point.
McCool, would you slit one baby's throat to save 5 babies?
No.
Well, you're letting 5 babies die?
You would let 5 babies die, man? You're okay with that?
You're okay. You're saying they should die, McCool?
Well, here's
No, you're saying they should die.
That's why I don't do. That's why I think that your question is ridiculous because we could easily reverse that on you, man. That's why I wouldn't go with that argument. And that's why Extra. Just so you know, Extra doesn't try to do stuff like that. At least he hasn't to me.
The problem with your argument is all the situations you brought up.
You keep making these claims, man.
When you take your argument, when you take the abolitionist argument, through all of its logical conclusions in other laws, you don't agree with it.
Yeah, that's not true. You tried to say that earlier, and I disproved that multiple times. Who did you vote for?
If you again,
and
no,
and I proved you according to the law. Hey, just so you know, this will be up. This will be up online. All right, and
Okay.
I'll make sure that I clip that and I'll make sure I clip this part where it goes. You don't even follow that, and then I'm gonna literally clip and add into every time you asked me to be consistent, and then I did, and you ended up conceding on it.
Yeah, I
All
have
right,
to
so
go.
I gave you the hypothetical.
Here's the thing.
If you were the deciding vote.
Hold on, McCool, real quick. All right, because Scooter has to go to bed. All right, Scooter, if you're okay with giving him a minute to do some kind of closing so he can have peace, give him a minute, and then if you're okay, I would like my closing. I'm just going to literally read Deuteronomy chapter 4, 1 through 8.
Okay. Do you have access to my live recording?
I think that's a question for you, man.
Oh, okay. I'll take a look at that.
All right,
yeah,
all right. Go ahead, McCool. You got a minute. Go ahead and give a closing so you can have peace. Just so you know, it's a good conversation, man. Let's talk again. All right.
Yes. So I would say
All right,
that,
give a minute, and then I'll do my time. All right, go ahead.
I would say that your argument always implies that they have the option between perfect and evil, and but when I give you other options, like for example, I said if you were the deciding vote, you were the one single vote that decided whether unalivers go free because the other option is life in prison, not the death penalty. You said yes. If you were the deciding vote, and if you voted no, they would go free. If you voted yes, they would get life in prison. You said you would not vote for that. Or even if I said if you veto, say if you vetoed in that hypothetical that they would go free. And then I said, you kind of agreed to that. At least I know I added the veto part, which changes things, but say in this one it's the veto, then what would you do? And if you say, well, no, it's still better that they go to life in prison, then what you're arguing, you're the one who's saying it's better to do something than to not follow God's law at all, or at least try for justice. And I think in many ways
All right.
you're saying,
You're trying. I gave you an extra minute. It's okay, man. But yes, but Scooter has to go to bed, so I want to be careful for his time. All right. Good talk, man. Let's talk again on that one.
Wait, are you not going to answer that?
Well, no, because it was just a closing thing. We're not supposed to respond because Scooter's trying to go to bed.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I let you do a closing on there. So here's how I'm going to close. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 4, 1 through 8. And now, O Israel, listen to these statutes and rules that I am teaching you, and do them, that you may live and go and take possession in the land that Yahweh your God, the God of your fathers, is giving you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your God that I command you. Your eyes have seen what Yahweh did at Baal Peor, for Yahweh your God destroyed from among you all the men who followed after Baal Peor. But you who yield fast to Yahweh your God are all alive today. See, I have taught you these statutes and rules as Yahweh my God has commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the people, who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as Yahweh our God is to us whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? I encourage anyone and everyone who is listening to obey what God has commanded. All right.
All right, y'all.
Go in peace, brother. Good talking with you.